We're back with more real estate updates, special edition. We're talking about 40 plus years, how things have changed on Hilton Head Island with Realtor James Wedgeworth. Talk about how unique Hilton Head was back then, as far as, did people really see this as a vacation destination back in the 80s?
You got to realize in 81, we didn't have most of the developments that we have now up and down the coast. So this was the place to come to. And when Charles Fraser put this together, he was light years ahead of any other development. Now you had developments, you had Fripp Island, you had some beaches in Savannah, but they were what we call old time beaches. They didn't have golf, they didn't have security, they didn't have the amenities. And Charles Fraser, when he came up with planned unit developments, I tell people all the time, you don't realize this, but this was the #1, this is the first one.
Yeah.
Now you go to any big city in the whole country, you've got all kind of planned unit developments, but it started right here.
And wasn't his design unique in the sense that the roads ran perpendicular, right, to the ocean? Is that true? I mean, instead of everything being...
Yeah.
Yeah.
His concept was great in the planning, in the security gate, nobody ever heard of that. And just the natural beauty and the covenants. There were no covenants anywhere. Like if you bought a lot on Fripp, not Fripp, but one of the beaches in Savannah, you won't build a house, you just built it. You didn't ask anybody. And you had ugly houses, tall houses, short houses, purple houses. And Charles said, we want everything to blend in with nature. So what happens when people started coming, they said, we love it here. We love it here. And Hilton had just became the place for the upper class, financially able folks to come. And they came here, movie stars came here, everybody came here.
Here's a question for you. I know you talk about in the present day that people that have vacationed here for years will end up retiring here or buying a home here. Did that happen back then as well?
Oh yeah, it definitely did. But we didn't have the backlog that we have now. Like the first person I showed real estate to in 81, I just sold his son a house on the island. So I'm on my second generation now, but you didn't have second generations there because people had just started vacationing here.
Wow, it's almost like being a family doctor or something,
yeah,
isn't it?
I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah.
Looking at the development that has occurred and the addition of, say, Long Cove Club and others, do you think we have maintained what is special about Hilton Head Island? And even the commercial development, all of that.
You know, people ask me that all the time and said, wow, I bet you loved it 42 years ago. So I love it more today because Charles had the thing set up where you couldn't mess it up, is what I tell people. Because if he didn't have it set up that way, I promise you a developer will mess it up. But he had everything, the island was basically planned out. And we'd never been a development on the East Coast where everything was planned. He was a pioneer. I'm just glad I was able to be here in the early years.
Yeah, I mean, to see that all happen. But I mean, didn't we have like maybe one grocery store back? Were you here then?
Yeah.
Someone told me there was like one grocery store on the island. Buildings were really not meant to be built too high, I mean, you know, as far as restrictions
Well, it was
going.
pretty much south end.
Okay.
You know, in the old days, you had Palmetto Dunes, you had Port Royal, Hilton Head Plantation just had a few houses in it. So most everything was concentrated close to Coligny.
Yeah, Piggly Wiggly, was that the one grocery store? Wow. And when you think about it though, and you mentioned what the homes were like or costed, was there inventory then? You may have told me yes or no.
I mean, not much, because there weren't many realtors, there weren't many houses.
Right.
So, you know, that changed with growth.
Yeah.
There are over 1,000, I think 1,400 now.
Realtors you're talking about? So we're talking a big increase. What part of this do you find as far as we've gone through the years? Let's talk about some of the ups and downs, like the heights of when things got crazy and times where things really were not too good.
We had a good market 78 through 80. And then Jimmy Carter came along, and unfortunately, we don't want to be political, but we had a slow market. And we had a great market in 2005 to 2004 to 2007. And then we had the bad years, the bankruptcy years. And then, of course, the best years ever have been the COVID years.
Did you ever think you'd see
No.
the demand that you saw
No.
during that? It has slowed down. We'll talk about that in another show, but I mean, it was frenetic, was it not?
Crazy's the right word.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at that MLS book and you see how people on their own can look for property now, and come in with the information, say, James, I want to see A, B, C, D, that has changed.
Totally
a lot.
changed. The purchaser now has access to the same information that the realtors have. That's the major change in the business.
So you really have to be there for whoever you're working with in order to have them stay with you, right?
Yeah.
Well, James Wedgeworth, we're going to talk a little bit more about real estate, how it's changed when we come back.